substitution. Let's say I start off with these two equations. Let's say I've got 3x plus 2y is equal to negative 5. And I've got x plus 2y is equal to 1. Now in substitution, the first thing we need to do is we need to isolate a variable if one's not already isolated. We're going to isolate a variable. And at this point, we've got two equations. And you get to pick which one you're going to isolate. You get to pick which equation you're going to mess with. You get to pick which one you're going to solve for. I'm going to take the second equation and I'm going to solve for x. The reason I'm going to take the second equation and solve for x is I can look at it and say, well, as soon as I move this 2y to the other side, it's done. X is all by itself. That leaves me no fractions and no additional steps to do. If I solve for any of the variables, you're going to end up with fractions if you solve for those variables. Go ahead and take a, try it out if you don't believe me. You will get fractions. Now that I've got x isolated, I'm going to take this value I have for x, 1 minus 2y. And in this equation, I'm going to replace x with this value because they are equal. It says so right there. X is equal to 1 minus 2y. So I've got 3x plus 2y is equal to negative 5. 3x plus 2y is equal to negative 5. And instead of x, I'm going to substitute this value. So 1 minus 2y. At this point, I've got one equation with one variable. It looks very similar to things that we've already done. I'm going to distribute that 3. 3 minus 6y plus 2y is equal to negative 5. Take that 3 to the other side. Combine my y's out. My y's can be negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4y equals negative 8. So y is equal to divide by 4. Watch those negative signs. Y is going to be equal to positive 2. Now that I've got my y value, I can go back in and substitute for my x value. Example, I'm going to use this equation right here because it's short and it's easy. X equals 1 minus 2y. Y is positive 2, so I'm going to dump that value, positive 2, into this equation. Remember, you could select any equation you had. I picked this one because it's easy. X is equal to negative 3. So my solution point is x equals negative 3, y equals positive 2. I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to show you sometimes it is very important which equation you pick. So, well, first we isolated the variable. Second thing we did was substitute that value in. The variable. There we go. And then the last thing we did was solve for both variables. Let's try those steps with a slightly more challenging equation. Now you will see this type of equation in word problems. This comes from one of the coin problems that we've had. Let's say you had $1 in dimes and nickels. Now I know a lot of you could do this in your head, but you've got to have something to fall back on in case the numbers get too large. So we have $1 in dimes and nickels. The value of the dimes plus the value of the nickels is $1. And let's say altogether we had 15 coins. So the number of dimes plus the number of nickels is equal to 15. This is where choosing the equation for substitution and making your equation easier is so important. I'm going to do some things here that you might want to do or might not want to do. I'm going to choose this bottom equation, solve for d. d is equal to 1, 5 minus d. d is equal to 15 minus d. Now, two things. The first thing I did was I solved for d and not n. Even though they're both the same level of difficulty, d will be easier in the long run. The reason? I've got to substitute this value in. So I take a look forward and say, hey, check that out. I'm going to have to multiply by 0.1 or by 0.05. I would much rather multiply by 0.1 than I would 0.05. That's why I'm going to substitute in for d instead of n. That's why I'm going to solve for d rather instead of n. So I get this bad boy all set up, ready to go. I'm going to take and substitute in my value. Got it all set up. Distribute my 0.1. Minus that 1.5 from both sides. Take these two and combine them up. Watch those decimals. When you've got little decimals, it's hard sometimes to keep everything straight. So I've got negative 0.5n is equal to negative 0.5. Divide both sides by negative 0.05. get my n isolated. Now I'm going to get n is equal to 10. Since I know n is equal to 10, and d is equal to 15 minus n, d must be equal to 5. So 5 times 10 nickels would be $1. With 15 coins altogether. That's substitution. You've got your 3 steps. Isolate your variable. Substitute in that variable. Solve. Go back. Solve for the other one. Basic substitution.